It's Livin the Bream with host of Fox News at Night, Shannon Bream.
All right, this week on Livin the Bream, we are doing the top headlines, and they are all about the passing of Justice Ginsburg, what happens next, the potential contenders for her seat, the fights on Capitol Hill, where this is going to go. And we have two fantastic guests. If you've joined us on Fox News at Night, you have seen them there. We think this is the first time we have them paired together, so we're going to do this on radio, and hopefully they'll come do it on TV as well. We've got Dave Brown with us, who headed up nominations when he was a staffer for Senator Murray over on Capitol Hill. He's a Democratic strategist, and you've seen him come discuss all kinds of topics on with us. Also with us today, Mike Davis. He's the president and founder of the Article 3 Project, or A3P. He has all kinds of bona fides on the Hill, as well as former chief counsel on nominations to the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's a former clerk for now Justice Gorsuch. So these gentlemen know a thing or two about the judiciary, how it works, how the nomination and confirmation process works, and we're glad to have them both with us. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me, Shannon.
Okay, I want to first start by asking you both to give us some thoughts on the legacy, the seat that is left open now by Justice Ginsburg, what her mark will be on the court and more broadly on the country. Mike, I'll start with you.
So Justice Ginsburg was a force. She was the lioness of the left, the intellectual force of the liberal wing of the Supreme Court, definitely a trailblazer. And just on a personal note, when I joined Justice Gorsuch on the Supreme Court as one of his first law clerks, she was incredibly welcoming and kind to Justice Gorsuch and his law clerks. So I have the greatest respect for Justice Ginsburg, and it is a sad day that she has passed. She leaves behind a tremendous legacy.
Dave?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I can't imagine anyone in modern day filling her shoes and occupying the role in history, the space in history that she did and has. And certainly she shattered a million glass ceilings for so many women who are now lawyers, judges, and leaders in their fields. And so she is, I think, both someone who will be looked to as an incredible icon on the left, as a progressive champion, as a moral voice, as a voice of just unimpeachable integrity, but also, too, marked by the fact that she enjoyed friendships with uncommon bedfellows, people like Justice Scalia, people with whom she ardently disagreed on policy, on the law, on ideology perhaps even, but recognized that, at the end of the day, they served an institution, and they did so with dignity and honor, and they did so as colleagues and friends. And so I think that is a mark of a tremendous human being.
Well said, gentlemen. She leaves a huge gap and a change on the court, because we always say this. I mean, anytime there's a new justice, it really changes the feel of the court. There are just 9 of them serving together generally at any one time. And they do each have their own personalities, but because this is such a demanding, very insulated kind of role that they play, they do all have to find their footing with each other and within the court and how they work together. So now we start to wait and see who will be the next person to join the court. The Republicans and President Trump are determined that it will be on his watch. So let's talk through some of the names that have been batted about a little bit. We think the list is very much narrowed down. But let's talk a little bit so people know a little bit about some of the folks on the list. Let's talk about Allison Jones Rushing. Mike, if you would.
Yeah, Judge Allison Jones Rushing is a new Fourth Circuit clerk in a North Carolina seat on the Fourth Circuit. She is 38 years old. She clerked for then Judge Gorsuch 2 years after I did on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. She clerked for Judge Sentel on the D.C. Circuit, and she clerked for Justice Thomas on the Supreme Court. She was a top litigator at a top law firm for 10 years, and before she was put on the bench 2 years ago. She is a favorite of religious conservatives, evangelicals. She did a lot of work for the Alliance Defending Freedom, or ADF, and she is a rock star on the Fourth Circuit. She's a little bit young, and I'll acknowledge that, but she certainly has a very, very bright future ahead of her in the federal judiciary.
And Dave, I'm not sure how serious the president is about her because of her age, but it seems to be the thing he likes to troll the left with a little bit. Like, hey, she's just 38. She could have 50 years up there. He seems to be sort of poking at the left a little bit with thinking about somebody so young on his short list.
Well, she's certainly young. I mean, she also obviously has a troubling record, particularly with her affiliations with Alliance for Defending Freedom and the positions they've taken against people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender in the U.S. So I think it's fair to say that this would be an alarming pick to many people who care about equality for people who are gay. And, the president, I think, has a fundamental choice that he's probably struggling with if reports are to be believed. And that really is about whether he nominates someone who will help him with his reelect in terms of occupying, perhaps coming from a state that is a battleground state like Florida, or someone who's going to really satisfy movement conservatives and galvanize his evangelical base at a time when he needs all the help he can really get in terms of both holding his numbers at 2016 levels, but also potentially even picking off a few folks who flipped and voted for Democrats in 2018, but he thinks he might be able to bring back to his side for 2020. And so much of the calculus for any of these nominees, I think, really will be a mix of trying to think about the political context for the election, and also too how he satisfies really the deal he made with evangelicals who installed him as president to ensure that they're getting someone they consider suitably socially conservative.
And so folks will know a little bit more about what you're discussing. The group that she has some affiliation with, Alliance Defending Freedom, they've done a number of cases that have gone to the Supreme Court and everything in between, dealing with religious liberty versus the intersection with LGBTQ rights. So they've been involved in some landmark cases. She was asked about that during her Senate confirmation, the group having been labeled a hate group by some on the left. She said, I never saw anybody espousing hate during her time working with the group. So that is definitely something that will come up that she'll have questions about. But let's talk about Judge Barbara Lagoa. A lot of attention paid to her for a number of reasons. She would be unique. She was the first Hispanic female named to the Florida State Supreme Court. She served many, many years in the state court system there, so she's relatively new to the federal bench. She comes from, we have to say it, in a political year, a swing state, which may be a consideration for some of the president's team in those who are backing her. Dave, let's start with you this time, then we'll go to Mike about your impressions of Judge Lagoa.
Yeah, so I mean, you set that up so well, Shannon. I mean, she is obviously from Florida, a key state for the president if he wants to get to 270. She's a Cuban American, and so, and again, just purely from a political electoral perspective, that's a base that the president is polling well with right now in Florida, and certainly this would be a way to really bolster that standing. But again, this sort of speaks to that cleavage I was describing a moment ago between movement conservatives and the more, let's call them, political pragmatists within the White House and on the campaign. And really the question is whether she is suitably conservative for folks who are really looking for someone who bleeds red and is unimpeachable in terms of ideology. And so I think that's going to be the debate that's sort of intra-Trump world right now that's really playing out. And you're seeing a lot of coverage right now, Shannon, about whether the president should pick her or Judge Barrett, and really setting up a showdown perhaps between the two. So it'll be interesting to see where this shakes out.
Okay, so Mike, is she conservative enough for the folks who have concerns on that side of the bench and want a specific thing from this president?
Sure. I mean, I've heard great things about her from a lot of different people. I think she's more than just a Cuban woman from Florida. And so I think there's a lot more to Judge Lagoa than just political appeal. She's 52 years old. She was a Columbia Law grad. She was a former federal prosecutor. She was a Florida state judge for 13 years at every level of the Florida state system, district court, appellate court, Florida Supreme Court. She's been on the 11th Circuit, a Florida-based seat on the 11th Circuit for a year now. She is a committed textualist and originalist, as she testified at her hearing. She got 80 votes in the Senate, including a majority of the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee and a majority of Democrats in the full Senate. She is ABA well qualified. ABA well qualified used to be the Democrats' gold standard. So not only does she have a compelling life story and a good political point, she's also a highly qualified jurist who would make a great pick for the Supreme Court.
Okay, so let's now talk about the front runner who was in the mix the last time around. She is the one that is on the top of everybody's list this time around for their predictions. Judge Amy Coney Barrett. She is 48 years old. She is a mother of 7 and currently a federal judge. She's had a little bit.
For the full podcast, go to foxnewspodcast.com.